Hello my peeps, this is Kat, aka Kakibot, and Merry Christmas! It is truly the festivest of seasons, and also this is the last video of the year on this channel. Sad, but also for me, happy. I get to take a little tiny Christmas break from editing. Ooh, the cat is being very jingly and festive. He doesn't want to come into the frame, unfortunately for you, because he is adorable. This video is going to be all about Scottish Christmas and Scottish Christmas history. And of course, you probably know that Scottish Christmas is a bit of a complicated matter. We're going to discuss what it has been replaced by, but also what sort of traditions were lived through during the times when Christmas was actually legal and during the times when it was less legal, and also how celebrating Christmas during those illegal Christmas times was punished. So yeah, also towards the end of this video we're gonna talk about what Christmas and especially Hogmanay is like in Scotland right now if you're visiting, how to enjoy Hogmanay, how expensive it is and such. Now let's travel way back in time and travel right into the era of Imbolc, or the pagan celebration of winter solstice. You probably know that in Scotland both Samhain, the sort of Celtic Halloween, mid-autumn celebration, is still very much alive, and just as much Beltane in spring is also very much a thing. So it only makes sense that here in Scotland, if you go on a website like Eventbrite or something similar and you put winter solstice or Imbolc into the search bar, you're gonna find a whole bunch of small gatherings. I would say that this wintertime celebration is a lot smaller than both the autumn one and the spring one, but it is still very much alive and well. It seems like the celebrations are a lot more kind of reflective and relaxing, and often involve just like jumping into very cold bodies of water from what I've seen. So if you're into that, if you're traveling to Scotland or if you live here and you're looking for something kind of, maybe something to like really reset you in this extremely chaotic, busy time of the year, you should look into that. Once the Vikings came over, they brought over Yule, which was their wintertime celebration. Here in Scotland, we would start calling it Yule or Yuletide. And similarly to the winter solstice, it was the celebration kind of, centered around, well, this is the shortest day of the year, let's have a big feast. But unlike Christmas these days, which I think that in a lot of Western world is quite the big deal, it's quite like the main holiday of the whole year. This holiday, the Yuletide, was, keeping it on the down low. It was actually less important for most people than, let's say, Easter. And all of that fun time feasting was interrupted by the Reformation. Yay, fun! Or, no fun. Reformation said, this is not Christ-like, this is too much feasting, everyone's enjoying themselves too much. As Scotland was moving on from Catholicism into Calvinism, basically the church or the kirk said that we don't like this. This was in the 16th century. So in 16th century, the kirk was basically saying like, you really should not be doing that. I'm not sure if this was because people were not quite listening to the kirk, but later on in 17th century a law has been passed that celebrating Yuletide in any way would be illegal. So you would not be able to sing any Christmas carols, you would not be allowed to bake any Yuletide treats. The punishment was often going to jail. That was very much an option. You could be excommunicated from your church community. I was looking up some specific examples of people breaking these laws, and apparently there were 5 men up in Aberdeen who got into big trouble for singing filthy Christmas carols, which is such a... It's in today's context that just sounds a lot more fun than it probably was. This law was finally overturned in early 18th century, but people took some sweet time getting used to it being allowed. So for quite a long time, people would only celebrate Christmas kind of behind closed doors. It was a very kind of intimate, like family-only thing. It was by no means like a community celebration. The need for that was replaced by Hogmanay, which you probably know is basically kind of like, it's almost to Scotland what St. Patrick's Day would be to Ireland, or some people say it's kind of to Scotland what the carnival is to Rio. And just like now, back then it was a lot about dancing and music and drinking and yeah, celebrating the change of the year over a couple of days. We're gonna get back into how that has changed or not. I'm just gonna finish telling you about the story of Christmas. It was actually named a public holiday in 1950s, so at that point the country was kind of telling you like, look, you are allowed to openly celebrate Christmas again. And now it's hard to believe that Christmas was ever outlawed, because when you're walking outside in like start of November, just you feel like, well, Christmas in Scotland has 2 months, basically from the Christmas markets opening on November 17th. It's just full-blown Christmas out there. So if you're not a fan of Christmas, then condolences. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, because Hogmanay was so much more of a thing than Christmas, we do have a lot more kind of specifically Scottish traditions connected to Hogmanay than Christmas. So let's talk about some of those traditions now. Now, first one of them you probably know about. It's the Auld Lang Syne song, written-ish by Robert Burns. He actually he was kind of traveling, collecting like folk songs, and when he found Auld Lang Syne among the peoples, he added to it, you know, he added a little bit of his flair to it, and it has become the song that honestly most of the world now understands is the like New Year's song. Also in Japan, it's the public garden closing time song. So if you're ever in Japan and you're like in one of the beautiful gardens and it's like 5 p.m, you will hear Auld Lang Syne. Next up, the Loony Dook. I just love that name. It is basically a tradition during which people, specifically in South Queensferry, you know, dress up and then they go take a little dunk in the Firth of Forth. I think that Loony Dook is a much better name for that from like marketing standpoint than the Wim Hof method. I just think that it's a lot funner. But I had no idea before researching this video that this is a pretty young tradition. They've only come up with this idea in the 90s, I believe, maybe late 80s actually. And it was basically a way of just snapping out of a really bad hangover. And over a couple of years, it just kind of snowballed into more of an event. And later in the 90s, it has finally become a part of Edinburgh's Hogmanay program. I think this is a really fun one to do, although I do believe that this year it's not actually on. I'm not sure if this is because of just some sort of, I think there might be like some sort of big roadworks or something in South Queensferry. If you know why it's not on in South Queensferry this year, please let me know in the comments below. It's a bummer, but I do think that if you look it up, there are some alternatives listed on their website. Now, the first footing is honestly more of a superstition than a tradition. And it basically says that based on who first arrives in your house on New Year's Day, you will be able to tell what your year's gonna be like. So ideally, you're getting someone bringing some like food and drinks, and you're gonna, you know, have a year of plenty. Also, apparently, the best option is a dark-haired man. This is a leftover from times when having a tall blonde man, maybe with like a big axe, would not be a great thing, because that would be a Viking and he would probably be coming to pillage you. Now, perhaps the most boring of them all is redding the house, which means readying the house, means cleaning your house. I'm sorry, I am not a fan of any tradition that is just forcing me to do my chores. A part of this would also be using mistletoe, you know, hanging a mistletoe in your house. This was not to be kissed under, but as a part of readying the house, it was actually hung there to ensure that everyone in the household stays healthy for the next year. Now, if you are more of a Christmas purist and you're not interested in adopting any of the Scottish Hogmanay traditions, I also have some Christmassy ones for you. First one being baking the Yule bread. Yule bread, again, was outlawed, so yeah, you can feel like a real rebel baking some Yule bread. I think this bake comes from the Shetlands and Orkneys, and it's, from what I understand, a savory bread. It's full of caraway seeds, which are supposed to represent the spirits of winter in Scottish folklore. It is kind of like almost like a challah looking bread, but it's baked in like a wreath shape, which is supposed to represent the sun, to kind of maybe bring at least some warmth, maybe to prevent at least some of that seasonal affective disorder. The other thing you could do is to burn some rowan twigs, which was done to make sure that there are no fights and disputes in your family. So perhaps if you're feeling like you're entering the new year and with some sort of conflict in your family, just burn it, burn some plants carefully. So now let's talk a little bit about what Hogmanay is like right now, this year specifically, and kind of, you know, widely in the modern times. Now, in the past couple of years, you know, during the lockdowns, I believe last year there was like nothing at all on. I remember just walking home at midnight, and I think there was like a little bit of fireworks, but there was almost nobody outside. It was strange, and honestly, a bit depressing. On the other hand, when the Hogmanay festival is on, it is very overwhelming. Now this is an event that attracts up to 40,000 people. This is not a small thing. Like, if you're getting overwhelmed by the Christmas markets, then this might not be for you. The festival spans over like 3.5 days, basically starts on 29th and goes over 30th, 31st, and then there's some stuff going on the 1st as well. On the 29th you can do the torchlight procession, which sounds like possibly the most peaceful part of the festival, but I don't know, like it still seems like quite a lot of people wielding open fire. All of the events are ticketed. I think to take part in the procession you have to pay $7.50 to be a part of it, or $20 to also buy the actual torch to, you know, become a menace to the rest of the large group. I do have some friends going this year, so I'm gonna have to ask them what it was like and how many eyebrows they've kept between the two of them. Then the celebration evolves into the big event, you know, the street party and the big concert, which this year is Pulp. I do like Pulp. I keep constantly overhearing young people on the tram and in shops saying like, I don't know who Pulp is. No! I know, it's I mean, it's the band from like the 90s. It's not even that, it's fine, we're old. To go see Pulp, you're gonna have to dish out about £90, so that's not cheap. But to take part in the street party, I think that's only about like 20. I think it depends. For locals it's about £22, and for visitors it's about 28. So you do get kind of a sweet discount if you're into streets and partying. One thing that I find interesting is that over those 3 days there's also like a mini festival of Scottish films on St Andrew Square. I think that like every day you get one film from like the catalogue of Scottish made films, so that's kind of cute and that's a lot more peaceful than the rest. Once again, my kind of dislike for crowds is shining through, but if you like crowds, you weird person, please enjoy yourself. If these events sound expensive, then worry not, because on the 1st, maybe if you're like me and you spent most of the Hogmanay sort of official period relatively sort of conservatively, then on the 1st you might be feeling pretty fresh, and as a reward you will get a whole bunch of free music events. They're kind of happening all around town. If you look up, it is called the first footing of the Hogmanay festival, so if you go on their website you will find a whole list of artists, including Hot Chip having like a DJ set on the 1st, which is pretty cool. I wonder what it's what does it mean if Hot Chip are the first people to come into your house on the 1st. I think it probably means that your year is going to be pretty rad. And also, I looked it up, and we are supposed to have a big firework this year. I think that New Year's, for me personally, is like the one time when it feels like appropriate. I think that during the festival season it can get a bit tiring because, you know, you sometimes get like 2 fireworks a day, and I can imagine the wildlife is probably really losing their flip over all those fireworks. But you know, I think on New Year's Eve I will allow it because my opinion is the only one that matters. I think one year we had like a drone show, which was pretty cool. I thought that was an interesting thing to see, and I think when that's done well, it's very interesting, and I think that in the future that could be a pretty good replacement for the fireworks. But here in Edinburgh, I do see it as a part of that Hogmanay tradition. There are many places in Edinburgh you can watch the fireworks from. Basically, if you kind of like go through the little Rolodex of views from Edinburgh, if you think of any nice views from which you can see the castle, which is, I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. This is a hilly city, so for example, from the meadows, you can probably see it relatively well. Obviously, not from Princess Street, because that's where the party is going to be. But there's a whole bunch of parks that have a relatively good view of the castle. Honestly, even here, like from someone's house, like there's many places in Edinburgh from which you get a solid view from at least like the airspace above the castle, and that might still be very enjoyable. So I'm actually kind of excited for that, because again, in the last 3 years we didn't get much of this. One last thing, I just want to make sure that you know you can obviously celebrate Hogmanay not just in Edinburgh. It's just that Edinburgh has this like big festival going on. I think that this year is its 30th anniversary. Maybe I'm lying, maybe I read like an old article, but I think it's kind of like around 30 now. You can absolutely celebrate in Glasgow or Inverness or Aberdeen instead, and honestly, for many people I imagine that might be a nicer way of doing it. Okay, now wow, this truly is the end of the content coming out on this channel in 2023. There's gonna be one extra video coming out on my Patreon, so if you really miss me, you could go and become a paying patron and see one more video about just kind of me enjoying festive Edinburgh and having some festive treats. If not, I will see you in January. I already have a whole bunch of cool things planned for January. Already stressing myself out with all the concepts and themes, but I believe that it's going to be much better. There's going to be a lot less to do in January outside of shooting videos, so hopefully it's just gonna be a lot more chill. Okay, let me know in the comments below what you're looking forward to the most when it comes to your holiday season. Let me know if any of these traditions sound like something you would like to adopt and make a part of your holiday celebrations. And you can always visit me on Instagram too. I will probably be posting some stories there from our holiday celebrations. So that would be either Kaki Bot for some of my festive illustrations, Kaki Blog for photos of life in Edinburgh. And this is my Patreon. That is truly it from me. Merry Christmas or any other holiday that you might celebrate, and a Happy New Year. I will see you when we're in 2024. Bye. The cat is just absolutely losing it. I hope you can't hear him. Boy? Boy. Can you see him? No. Boy! He does not want to be on camera. I'm so sorry.